we are going to start off with what's happening around the country. It is everywhere right now going on with these ICE raids. We started seeing them come out of California as, Trump was deploying the National Guard over there over the weekend, deployed the Marines to Los Angeles, saying that there was violent protests breaking out all over the place. But, it was basically they were showing the same image of the same burning car over and over and over again. So now, in response to that, they are saying that they're going to deploy more of these special response teams to 5 additional cities around the country: Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City, and to Northern Virginia. And now we are seeing protests break out in about like 16 different cities around the country. And that's ahead of the fact that there are planning to be mass protests basically everywhere in the country on Saturday, on Donald Trump's birthday, which he tried to put a military parade around to make it seem like it's not a parade for his birthday. So there's a lot of different angles that I want to kind of like go into with this, Chuck. But like, what was your first, thoughts about everything going on with the ICE raids, the protests in response, Trump's escalation? Like where did you fall in all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, unfortunately, it's not surprising what's happening because quite honestly, Donald Trump campaigned on this. And
Yeah,
this is what we feared going into the election. And now it's being played out before our eyes, and it's terrifying for other people. Like I'm not worried, obviously, but it's terrifying to see because our friends, our neighbors, our communities are being disrupted by ICE, by these militarized forces coming
yeah,
in, ripping families apart. And I think one thing, actually, to kind of amend what I just said, one thing that really should worry everybody is how police and how ICE, these federal agents, are trampling over people's First Amendment rights. We've seen, if you watch some of the live streams in Los Angeles, for example, there are protesters that are protesting peacefully. Maybe they're hurling insults at police officers and whatnot, but that's a protected right under the First Amendment if you're in a public space, and they were.
yeah,
Police are shooting them with air quotes non-lethal ammunition point blank. They're shooting the press point blank with these types of non-lethal ammunition. This is a form of suppression of speech, and it's something that I think everybody should be really concerned about, and anybody that cares about the First Amendment should really be concerned about. But more so than that, I mean, this is just a heartless regime that is in charge of our federal government, and it's just, I look at this and I think, you can kind of feel helpless in these moments because there's so much, like, you see the full strength and power of the federal government coming in and just
yeah,
executing these raids and these kidnappings. And that's what we should be referring to them as. They aren't
yeah,
deportations. Deportation is a legal proceeding. This is a kidnapping. They are
yeah.
taking these people away from their families and taking them to God knows where. And so it's really concerning. And I feel like this is something, honestly, that the administration gets off on. So I don't see them ending this or curtailing it anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, you are essentially right about, calling it a kidnapping. We can call it an abduction. I mean, like they are disappearing people off the streets,
Hmm.
not giving them any due process. In a lot of cases, they are showing up to elementary school graduations. They're showing up to people's workplaces. They're showing up to the courthouses while these people are going to their hearings that we are asking them to go to, and
Yeah.
they are being detained and like taken away after that. So I mean, like everything that you can think of as far as bending the law or breaking the law is happening right now. I mean, this is all a spectacle. Like Trump
Yeah.
is straight dehumanizing these people. He is, stripping them of their rights. He's instilling fear into a population. I came across people here where I live at in Missoula, Montana, who, they appear to be immigrants. They're non-white people. They have a food truck here in my city, and they had customers basically kind of like tell them like, hey, if you don't give us good service here, we're going to report you to ICE. And these are just
Wow.
natural, like U.S. citizens. So they just happen to be non-white, so they just appear that they are. But the point is like this is the kind of like terror that's kind of like domino affecting across our country right now. Trump is emboldening so many different people to talk to these people however they think they want to, and I really don't know where it goes from here. I am glad that it seems that people are going to be ready to get back out into the streets this weekend. I think we need that. I think that we need to just show on in multiple different levels that we are not going to normalize this by being silent and not speaking out against what the Trump regime is doing, because we really do need more people speaking up right now.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely I've been really impressed with the level of activism, of grassroots activism, especially in places like Los Angeles and other communities where these ice raids are happening. The thing I've been
Yeah,
disappointed about is the reaction from some elected officials, particularly Democrats who should be on our side on this, and just their kind of lukewarm way of approaching this. And every time that there is a at least a broadly covered protest like in Los Angeles, there's always a focus and a fixation on what the protesters are doing wrong. People scolding them for, oh, the optics of this is bad, or you shouldn't be lighting things on fire or looting and all that stuff. And of course, like in an ideal situation, you wouldn't. But I think there's so much focus on like the fact that one person lit a Waymo on fire, which is a driverless kind of Uber situation, I guess. We don't have them here, but they have them in Los Angeles, New York.
yeah,
But and less focus on what the state, what the government is doing to suppress speech. And I come back to that because this administration has, ever since they took office, been slowly and sometimes quickly chipping away at the foundations of the First Amendment. And even by shifting the focus to what the protesters are doing wrong and lecturing them instead of focusing on what is actually happening to suppress these rights is in and
yeah.
of itself an erosion of the First Amendment. And so that's something I've been so disappointed about. And I wish that there were more Democrats that were speaking out because honestly, they have an obligation to do this. The party who, when there's an election that comes up, they claim to be like pro-immigrant, we're anti separating families, all this stuff, all the rhetoric. But when it comes down to it, I haven't seen a lot of actual courage, political or otherwise, come out. And I mean, I think that that is really telling. There have been some, I will say, there have been some. Zoran Mamdani in New York City, who's running for mayor. Granted, he is running for mayor, but he
Yeah.
has been a very outspoken opponent of ICE. There has been others. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, of course, has been abolish ICE for a long time. So there definitely are some, but I think it's just been disappointing to see how some of them have reacted.
No, I could not agree more. I mean, I think that the list has been growing over the last like month or so. I mean, like maybe you can point out to like maybe 2 dozen, maybe 30 of them, but we're also talking about a body of 250, right, between the House
Right.
and the Senate. So I mean, it's a small number in comparison. I mean, I saw that they all like marched into Republican Majority Leader's Thune's office today after a Democratic senator got thrown to the ground at a Christy Nome conference.
Yeah,
So
that was wild.
when they want to present a united front and a show of force, they're willing to do that. But maybe it just takes one of their own being thrown to the ground, not the protesters out in these different cities. I will say this: it is remarkable to me that there are so many Democrats who are willing to, and honestly accurately, point out the dangers of Donald Trump and a fascist regime when you're leading up to an election like they did last year. But now that we're actually in the throes of it and
Hmm.
we are seeing it day by day play out, it's
Yep.
actually exactly what they said was going to happen. In a lot of cases, it's worse. And yet they're more quiet now than they were during the election season. Like, I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Like, if it's some strategy, it's a terrible strategy. If it's just like callous indifference, then you know what? Obviously that guy David Hogg was right. We do need to replace a lot of these people
Yeah.
because your response to this moment shouldn't be, I can't even muster up a tweet.
Yeah.
That can't be it.
My theory is that they're afraid to come out and flat out say abolish ICE. Most of them.
Yeah.
That's because and there's so many of them, like Alyssa Slotkin and the people who are really trying to toe this centrist line, and they're thinking like, "Oh, this is going to make me seem anti-police, and when I'm up for re-election or when I go home to my district, I'm going to get yelled at." And the thing is like, if if you really believe in your heart that ICE should not exist, and I do personally, then you should be full throatedly saying that. Now, it may be the case that a lot of those Democrats don't, and I imagine that there's a sizable amount that don't. But I think that some of them are kind of cowardly when it comes to that and afraid to really come out hard on a policy that may be controversial to some of their constituents, but that is in my opinion the correct position. And I think that this is something that has kneecapped a lot of Democrats. They get fixated on this whole 80-20 issue thing, like, oh, this is an 80-20 issue. There are things that you have to be brave and politically courageous on that are not going to be overwhelmingly popular among the people who elect you. But you have
Yeah,
to take that position in order to actually show some form of leadership. I mean, the Freedom Riders were not popular
right.
when they were protesting segregation. Segregation was wildly popular. Slavery was wildly popular. That doesn't mean that it was a good thing. I don't know. It's driving me crazy, and it's just
Yeah.
you see it every day, and you just start seeing like who are the real ones and who aren't.
No, you absolutely do. And I think, a lot of them get caught up in the fact that, like, oh, Trump ran on immigration, mass deportations. It was a really popular thing for him. There is maybe get a little controversial here. I think there's a big distinction between wanting to enforce immigration laws and where ICE is right now.
Hundred
ICE
percent.
ICE is a hyper militarized police force that operates in plain clothes. They have even less restrictions on them than the police do, and the police barely have any restrictions on them anymore. They don't have to follow any due process. They can go anywhere they want to without any warrants, abduct anyone they want to. I mean, it is absolutely unconscionable the level of power that these people have. And we're supposed to just normalize this? I mean, what is next? Are we going to have a police force similar to ICE that can just go and capture American citizens whenever they want to for any reason whatsoever? I mean, that's really the logical, next step of all of this. So I think
Well,
that,
yeah.
yes, I mean, ICE to a degree. I mean, I don't think it should even be controversial to abolish them. I mean, at the end of the day, there should be no force in this country that can just go and abduct people and not give them any due process and ship them out of the country. Any entity that does that should not exist. I don't think that should be a controversial opinion.
I don't think it should either. And people may think that it's hyperbolic to say that the next step on the slippery slope is to be doing this to natural born American citizens, but it's not. And we've
Yeah,
seen echoes of attempts to do things similar to this. How they're trying to criminalize or at least make it a civil violation to say things like free Palestine because it is because the government wants to interpret that as being supportive of a terrorist organization.
right.
And that is such a slippery slope. And I don't care if it's a logical fallacy or not because it's true. And the more that people normalize, the more that we give them, the more they're going to take. It's the whole if you give a moose a muffin type
Yeah,
situation. I mean, we learned that by reading that book when we were like 7, and it's still valid. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
yeah, absolutely. And there is honestly there's so much more to get into this story, and I think something that we're going to keep coming back to as time goes on because it seems as though Trump is planning on keeping these ICE tactical units in these cities for what seems to be an indefinite amount of time. They said
Yeah,
that. I mean, at first they were like, "Oh, they'll be there for a few days," then it was a few weeks, and then now Kristi Noem is saying that they'll be there until the socialist threat is taken out. I mean,
Jesus
so
Christ.
now they're what declaring war on an ideology. So I mean, I have
That's
no
really
idea.
telling. That's really
Yeah,
telling. It's not about illegal immigration now. It's about socialism, which they've made that an issue for ever since the modern Republican Party existed.
right. So now that they just want to make
Lunacy.
sure that they're going to be going after anyone who thinks differently than them. Like if you are not willing to call these people fascists, I think you need to revisit the definition of the word. That really is just how I feel about that.